Everything's running long. That's all I've got to say about it. Everything's running long. Leung. Everything's running Leung. It's April 2nd. That's a little tribute to the Asian people and Lawrence Leung. That I read a lot of your stuff and it just sounded like a lot of bullcrap to me. It was just a lot of bullcrap. So we're looking at this and deciding whether or not it's bullcrap as well. How large is God? It is day 332. I think this was recommended. And you know what? The truth of the matter is, I could find out. Because I made that list, and that would be the only way I would be able to remember that title specifically. Although I probably looked it up right away. There's the design. It's a soft rain. So the one I picked up is the sellout for all of you who are sellouts to the human race. Like their opinion doesn't count. Like somebody has to write out democracy and what it means because your opinion doesn't count otherwise. What sense does that make? It's not opposing democracy. It's suggesting it's in our nature. It's in our spirit. Let's see how large God is. Think he includes democracy? I don't think he uses those big words. I agree with you there. That's why he has a spokesperson. I've been accused of the sorts. Being an artiste, liberal, talking too much, a know-it-all. Part 2, approaches to scientific and theological answers. So we are on part 2. And I think I got this all right now because I do believe it is day 6 because we spent, it could be longer than that. Because we read no, it's not. Because we read introduction chapter 1 and then in 2 days. Yada, yada, yada. You got it. Approaching God through paradox. And this is interesting to me because isn't his name that Dyson, that Freeman, isn't it Freeman Russell? Russell Freeman. It's Russell Freeman. There's a Russell Freeman. So you got all these writers who are writing down all their same ideas, just from different perspectives. Like what I mean by that is not this different perspective, not stretching your brain, but from an astronomical perspective, from a cellular perspective, same GD idea. That's what it's beginning to sound like, you, Mr. How Large is God? Because I didn't care for the ending. So I didn't care for Freeman J. Dyson. But that being said, it sounds to me like they are just trying to get me to say certain things that will trigger certain dog whistles. That's all I got. I only got a bird whistle. All right, let's see what's, yeah, and then at the end of it, they're talking about, like, I mean, just all those names, like with C. Stoddard, Clive Lewis. Bite me. You think you're the cause of my metaphysical mind? Because I think you would have had me going in a different direction. Going down. It is difficult to think of science without also associating the idea of progress with it. Science moves forward, pushing back the frontiers and embracing new theories in the light of fresh data gained. Scientific knowledge is always improving its understanding of the workings of nature forever deepening. The modern science worldview is clearly an improvement on that of past ages. We are convinced that we are closer to the truth now than any other previous time. When it comes to religion, we appear to be dealing with a different kind of activity. It is commonly thought that, unlike science, religion is firmly rooted in the past. It reverses the teachings of the great men of long ago, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and the Buddha. Their words are enshrined in sacred scriptures that are not to be questioned. The truths of religion are fixed and unchanging. Who are we talking about here? Oh, science. Yeah, those SOBs. But is that a fair assessment? You're GD right, Russell Stannard. Let me guess. Frederick, is it what the F is for? Oh, I know what the F is for. Fascist Fs. Thanks for letting me know, Russell. But is that a fair question? Is religion so different from science? Oh, here we've got Mr. I see two sides of the same coin. Just like you, Dr. Feravich. Just like you. Do you? Do you? Because I can ask you a couple questions, and then we can find out what you think about them. Like white supremacy. Talk on. At the onset, one has to admit that it is easy to see how this common perception arises. The great religious figures of the past had extraordinary spiritual heights. In particular, if one believes as a Christian that Jesus was uniquely the Son of God, then his life and teachings constituted a special revelation of God that outranks all others, one against which the veracity of any future claims to spiritual understanding have to be tested. In science, there is no such anchor point in the past. Oh, you don't even know from whence you speak. Sounds like you're a progressive eugenist. But even so, it has to be remembered that Jesus himself spoke of the coming of the Spirit after his ascension. The Spirit that would lead us into all truth. One interpretation is that there was yet more to learn about God and his ways. Oh, really? Do you think? I think it was just simply thick-headedness, Russell. It is my, I know, you're just a son of a, Russell. I like science. I like science. I like science. That's just a really good thing to highlight there. One interpretation. I'm sorry, who's writing this? A scientist? Let's hear what he has to say. It is my contention that just as science makes progress, so also does religion, or more strictly speaking, theology. In the same way as one would not wish to trade our modern scientific view of the world for that of past generations, so too our BS again coming right out the nostrils. So to our understanding, have you met MAGA? So to our understanding, because I think you have, of God is an improvement on that of the past. It is deeper now than any other time, and just as it is confidently expected that scientific advances will continue into the future, so there is still much to learn about God. This is true not only of the collective understanding of the natural world and of its creator, but also of our own individual understanding of these matters. Throughout our own personal lives, we should be constantly replacing childish misconceptions about the world in which we live by more adequate notions based on the findings of science and all our understanding of God also ought to be in a continual state of revision and updating in the light of new experience. And here, what we have here is, sounds like Catholics. And here is, I was not going to write in this or highlight in this book, but then I realized I highlighted like right away. So it was like, oh yeah, I decided to highlight in this book. Guess what else I decided to do in this book? Write in this book. And that doesn't happen very often. And typically only to books that I feel are not sacred. So the framing of this then goes something like this. The Bible isn't, of the Catholicism idea, where the antenna started coming up with that, right? So what you hear, what I hear is the Bible is not the authority. That's what I hear from that statement right there, okay? Or from those last few paragraphs I just read. Oh, and then the next one is God of the Bible. So this is really good, isn't it? And then the other concept that gets me going about this is the Jesuits. Always the Jesuits. Because they're like ninja, right? They're just like ninja who seem or appear to be programmed, and that's how they're supposed to act. Now, they're not programmed, computer speaking, IT speaking, they're not programmed, but they are programmed, and they're programmed. But see, but they're still human, so they're responsible. You have free choice, Jesuits. You have free choice. I'm sorry, what was that? You're blaming it on IT? Is that what you're doing? You're calling me IT? Oh, here's a big F you. God of the Bible. To convince oneself that knowledge of God does change with time, one has only to rearrange the writings of the Bible in chronological order. Deciding on the correct order in which they were written can be problematic. But when this is done to the best of present knowledge, the following broad picture emerges. We begin, because they've already set this up. The God of the Bible is old. It's old, dude. We gotta speak to young people. Is the Catholic Church speaking to you? Meet the Jesuits. Oh, they're like ninjas. Deciding on the correct order in which they were written can be problematic, but when this is done to the best of present knowledge, the following broad picture emerges. We begin with the commonly held belief that there were many gods or Baals. Each was in charge of a given territory and its people. One of them, are you confessing now what you really knew all along? One of them, Yahweh, was unusual in that although he had territory, a mountain in Sinai desert, he adopted his people, the Jews. Let's hear what he's got to say. At that time, he had no interest in other people. He thought nothing of killing off the firstborn of the Egyptians and subsequently drowning its army. Wow! He was jealous, warlike God. He was a jealous, warlike God who was to leave his mountain and go with his people on their wanderings through the desert. He fought for them against the Canaanites. This is also interesting to me too, because I could have written this as well. So you see the kind of challenge a race of people with a mouth of me, a race of people as in the human race, can fight with God. Your mouthpiece to fight with God. Oh, undoubtedly. But you have to be prepared that I'm going to come down on the side of God. I'm just going to really be explaining it to you. That's it. In words that people like me can understand. I'm not saying everyone understands it. That's the beauty in not Xing out somebody's religion, which, by the way, Western people put that word on there. They're like, what the hell's religion? I don't know what you're talking about. What's my religion? Well, sir, if you would pay attention to this survey, you would be informed that your rights are being discriminated against. I can't do that. My tooth. I'm hoping it's just tea, and basically black tea. Crossing my fingers. He was a jealous, warlike God who was to leave his mountain and go with his people on their wanderings through the desert. He fought for them against the Canaanites. But then it was discovered that Yahweh was more than a fighting God. As Elijah showed, one could pray to him for rain. He could be entrusted with the growth of crops in peacetime. It was not necessary to invoke the help of the local Baals for this purpose. Through Hosea, learning from his relationship with his wayward wife, Yahweh was found to be a God of love. He was able to forgive his people when they went astray. Then the poor shepherd, Amos, emphasized that Yahweh was a God of justice, justice for the poor and downtrodden. So you could begin to see how this is not a God of certain people, right? Who have great wealth, like the Catholic Church did. He was concerned about the plight of individuals, not just nations. How about not nations? Because what you were talking about is get to know my people, which is what we did through the works of the Bible. We don't get to know anyone else's people through history. That's all hidden. That's all secretive, right? Except for their conquests and their glories, by the way. See how I'm writing in the book now? Right there. X it out. Not nations. Isaiah, accustomed as he was to life in the king's palace and the ways of the nobility, he revealed to him something of the splendor and power of Yahweh, his glory filling the whole earth and not just Judah. Yahweh ruled the whole world, the most powerful God of all. Now, here's the thing. Again, that is framing like an MFer, right? Because God didn't rule the world. Satan ruled the world. These things that were happening weren't God's way. He gave you free choice, and you know it. So what you're trying to do is put the responsibility on God in his old-fashioned ways as if he's a man. As if he's a man. Ooh. He had that kind of power. He didn't rule like a J.A., like a Jah. Uh-oh. During the desolation of the exile, when the leading Jews were deported to Babylon from Jerusalem, and isn't that interesting language as well? Oh, you guys, I mean, I'm not going to be able to get through much more of this chapter, but we're going to continue in this book, and we're going to look at the slanderous word turning that they do, that these authors that claim to be scientists filled with pride, walking in the footsteps of the astronomer, who, by the way, unknowingly, so smart, yet walked right to King Herod and told him where baby Jesus was. I'm a skeptic. about their wisdom now that I read the Tao in Bookless Classroom. She's on a roll. She's on a roll. During the desolation of the exile, when the leading Jews were deported to Babylon from Jerusalem, so making them sound like foreigners. Lingo of today, modern lingo would say, hey, you SOBs, what were you doing there in the first place if you got deported? Sounds like you were foreigners. You foreigner. To Babylon from Jerusalem, and the great temple, the home of their God, was destroyed. Jeremiah taught that Yahweh was not confined to any temple, but dwelt in the hearts of the individual person, and for that reason he would be with them wherever they went. See, and this goes back to, you really need to contemplate Reader's Digest article today, in that what that was saying was, there's a spirit. There's a spirit. Pay attention. And that spirit is coming to you in many different ways. Conversations with God. Read that one, right? It's coming to you in many different ways. And sometimes you're going to have these ideas, and sometimes you're going to have those ideas. These ideas were challenging God. They were bringing to the forefront what people wanted to say to God with all the kind of anger behind it, minus the greed and self-interest. Now are you listening? And what I mean by that is have you left behind your greed and self-interest? Because now you can hear these words, right? But the writer didn't. Greed and self-interest and deported. Were Jews deported? Were they deported? Because I remember being enslaved. That's what I remember. And taken from their temple. Deported? Is that what you have? Is that how you put it? That's an extraordinary word. That's an MFer right there. That's a big time, large cock that nobody wants. MFer. F. Russell Stannard. This is a Jew hater from way back. And that's all it takes sometimes. But, my mind daydreams, and grace brings me right back. And this one, he's not letting me leave alone. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? When the leading Jews were deported to Babylon from Jerusalem, and the great temple, the home of their God, I'm appalled. I'm appalled. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? The home of their God. Okay, you clearly do not know anything about religion, about the Jewish religion or history of the Jews. They took over their temple. They destroyed their temple. How do you call that deported? They enslaved those Jews, even though they treated them nicely. They enslaved them. How do you call that deported? And the great temple, they were deported from their great temple? Were they living in their great temple? Is that where they were living? How do you get deported from a great temple? No, you destroy their great temple is what you do. Oh, it ends with destroyed. Sorry. Jeremiah taught that Yahweh was not confined to any temple but dwelt in the hearts of the individual person, and for that reason, he would be with them wherever they went. Oh, no big deal, huh? Not that Jeremiah was teaching that. Jeremiah was teaching, you may not see hope back there in Jerusalem. Your hope is here. Then came the greatest insight of all. Let's hear what their insight is. As recorded by 2nd Isaiah, Yahweh said, I'm the Lord, and there is no other apart from me. There is no other God. He was the only God. There had never been any others. Recognition that he was the ruler of the entire world then made the way clear for him to be seen as the great creator God of the world and of all living creatures, including ourselves. Depending for our very existence on him, we all owe him our loyalty. You might, Russell. Finally, with the coming of Christ, and by the way, he makes a declaration for your benefit. For your benefit. Hey, guess that little wisdom nugget passed you by. And what I mean by that is that he is telling you he is the creator God, and in essence, there aren't any others. Hire the Jesuits just to make sure. Finally, with the coming of Christ, God enters into his creation, taking on human life. He demonstrates in the clearest possible way his limitless love for us in the manner of his suffering and death. And then, through the resurrection of Jesus, we have the evidence of his power over death and of the prospect of eternal life with him. It was originally looked at in that way, and certainly this gives credence to a change in, but it's a manly interpretation, not the words of the Bible, which also are, I don't know, I do know. Yeah, no, they're coming from God. You put your skepticism in there, and your uncircumcised big wiener dick. Don't answer me. Because it's just the turn sometimes of these phrases can really get a person. And the sarcasm. Did you catch that? I knew there was something there that I was missing. He demonstrates in the clearest possible way his limitless love for us in a manner of suffering and death. Oh, really? Really? In the clearest possible way, that demonstrates God's love for us. Because it seems to be muddy waters for most people. And then through the resurrection of Jesus, we have the evidence of his power over death and the prospect of eternal life with him. Yeah, and so that really has changed into a ransom sacrifice. He was a ransom sacrifice to stop the killing of the babies. And that's what you did. He was the ransom sacrifice to stop the killing of the babies. Such an account of the development of the idea of God through the ages, although sketchy and oversimplified, nevertheless makes clear that theology is anything but static and fixed for all time. So that's another just gigantic jump in conclusions you decided to make? Indeed, a case could be made. I just thought it's clear. I thought it was clear that theology is anything but static and fixed. But I'll make a case for it. No, it's clear. Instead, a case could be made that the cumulative improvement in the understanding of God that took place during biblical times was as far-reaching and dramatic in its way as any scientific advance in our time. God beyond appearances. How is one able to make these advances in knowledge, whether we are thinking of knowledge of the world or of God? I have no idea. because you just put the big G God right in his place. So let's see how we're going to be able to do that. Essentially, it is a matter of going beyond superficial appearances and the seemingly common sense notions of what is happening. First impressions are nearly always misleading, and instead, one needs careful observation. The information from these experiences has then to be organized systematically and interpreted. In the field of science, for example, a seemingly obvious flat Earth, together with the special direction in nature called down, had to be replaced by a round Earth and a law of gravity, such that each particle of matter attracts every other particle of matter in whatever direction it might be. Yeah, it took a long time for you Catholics to do that. Now you're like, hey, listen, this is what we had to do all along. It was found that, contrary to appearances, moving objects did not of their own nature slow down. If left to their own devices, in absence of friction, they will continue to move at constant speed. See our last few classes on Newton and see if you might be able to see that as clear as mud as well. Just another wonderful exhibit of, change the way you think. From God to science. Maybe if we put a scientific definition on every mystical thing that's going on. Come on. Force, velocity, motion, energy. Yeah, what happened in the roller coaster ride is all those men carrying up those carts gave a lot of potential energy. And then you were able to use that, because if those men didn't walk those carts up the ladder, you couldn't enjoy yourself going down. I'm sorry, can you give me the definition of kinetic and potential energy, because that's going to be the part on the test? Thanks. They will continue to move at constant speed, although energy appears to get used up. Nevertheless, it is conserved. The bewildering array of hundreds of thousands of chemical substances, each with its own characteristic properties, can be made from just 92 different naturally occurring elements, and these in turn can be described in terms of just 3 particles: protons, neutrons, and electrons. Hello, this is what we're good for. Now hold on. Okay, protons, neutrons, electrons. Thanks. All right, let's go. The multitude of seemingly capricious patterns of motion and behavior we can all be accounted for in terms of adherence to just a handful of dynamic laws. Oh, that's so great, because we were wondering why we have so many criminals then. So what can the protons tell us about the criminals? And why is it that all those lawyers are jumping on board to make money and profit out of criminal behavior? What do the neutrons have to tell me about that? In a similar way, the changing understanding of God manifested in the Bible represented a movement away from first impressions. We'll call those, protons, whatever. And seemingly obvious solutions to more sophisticated observation and interpretation, electrons. For example, with the nations of the world constantly waging war against each other, protons, electrons, in the pursuit of conflicting goals and aspirations, neutrons, it was not easy to recognize that there was but the one God to whom all sides owed equal allegiance. Similarly, when so much evil was seen to be arrayed against the good, it took time, reflection, and deep insight to distill from this idea of God, who was holy, good, and loving. Well, judgment does come. Again, in the face of manifold injustice in the world, it was hard to discern the hand of a God of justice, until there was the Jesuits. a firmer realization that there was more to life than our earthly existence. Finally, in a society where certain people, the rich and powerful, appeared so much more important and influential than others, and quite understandably so, it was not immediately obvious that in the eyes of God, all individuals are of equal value. Thus, it was only on mature reflection that the great prophets of the past, drawing upon their life experience and circumstances, could collectively lead us from a picture of a divine world that was little more than a collection of petty, bloodthirsty, warring tyrants to the vision of the one great creator, the ruler of the whole world, the loving heavenly Father of all. Just a faint hint of sarcasm. We're going to stop there. And you can contemplate. There was a lot that I said there. A lot that I challenged. I do enjoy challenging this. That is for sure. If you find God to be such a great paradox, well, part of that paradox is in your own head. Dr. Annette Feravich, where we are bringing things about that are just a little bit more clearly than the scientists might be able to present it. Because you know what? They got their balls in advice with the FDA and big ag and big pharma. Okay, this is Dr. Annette Feravich, where we are bringing you a realistic look at how you can get a healthier mind, body, spirit, even when you think nobody's listening. Thanks for joining me here in the classroom on April 2nd, day 332. Thanks.